No, I just like saying that. I like saying tape. A little anachronistic, right? Okay, so we're talking about Sway today, and I like Sway. Sway's been around for a few years now, and it's a new Office 365 tool. Microsoft's rolled it out. I'm here at my office.com dashboard, which is kind of like home base for all things Microsoft. And Sway's been added there right with our heavy hitters, our familiar friends. Word, here I'm in the side panel. Let me open it up here for you. Word, Excel, OneDrive, Outlook. And then down here beneath our familiar friends, we have Sway. Just like we talked about Teams the other day, Sway is one of these next-gen tools. And I'm excited to share some grassroots examples of Sways that have been created, which sounds like a weird thing. Microsoft keeps trying to bill it as it's a new weird beast, a new breed of cat, but really it's a website. it's a website that is actually particularly easy to generate. So they really put a lot of work into making them quick and attractive to generate these websites. It's also really well integrated with other tools. So before I jump into it, I want to go into our training space, the Microsoft Tools Moodle space, and show you guys the section that we've built out. So this is where we're housing the teams. If you went through that, we have all this stuff lives in a high flex format is what we're calling it, where people can kind of self-serve and engage with the learning and the content how they want. So down here under, and if you're following along, you can earn your Teams badge by submitting, the requirements here. Or Brittany ran and Laura Van Wormer, Andy ran a great session on Excel, and you can complete that and earn your Excel badge if that motivates you. And here's our new segment, the Sway segment. And so there's a video I hosted here. I've produced beforehand. It's a YouTube video, and you can drag and drop that as well into a class or with a group, which will stand alone, and we're recording this session as well. And then there's some walkthrough materials, some Microsoft support materials here. They've got a huge library, a digital library of learning resources on how to do Sway. And I just shamelessly snipped this segment, I'm sure they'd approve, of what they outlined is sort of the major ways in which you can publish Sways: reports, presentations, newsletters, and even stories. And then, of course, here's the Sway Champion badge we whipped up if you want to earn that. So, yeah, let me show you guys how it's done. You can access it. I like to just go to office.com. I do it on any device. Works great on the iPad Pro or on your desktop. I'm working on my desktop today. And then you're logged in, right? And then you can see your everything Microsoft kind of feed, all the documents I've been working on recently. And then you could just pop into the browser version of your app you're interested in. Here I'm clicking on Sway. So here's Sway, and it gives me this browser version. At the top, it shows me options for beginning, a new Sway. So I can start a blank Sway. I can start from a document, or I can use templates to begin looking at them. I want to start with showing you one that Brittany put together, actually. And so here is a newsletter that Brittany Jackson, who was formerly coordinator for our study abroad program, she's put together a series of newsletters as a kind of outreach tool to people who are interested in travels, and so, or in the program. And so you can see what this looks like at the finished end. So she called it Terrier Travels Newsletter, and you can click through it down here with these arrows. And this one's organized as a series of slides. And it's cool to see Hiram students, and really, I think Paul was on this trip, right? Were you part of this experience, Dr. Gaff? I think yeah, so this was in the UK. Maybe he stepped away for a minute. And so she's got all these segments. We can go through it, and this is one way that a Sway, one way that a Sway can look. It can look like a slideshow. It could be a kind of newsletter that could be linked and shared. And so here's the blog, and she's embedded these not just photos, but also these links has it doesn't quite feel like anything in particular you've maybe seen before. It doesn't quite feel like a document or an email. It doesn't even quite feel like a PowerPoint. It's sort of like an enhanced website. And it's a fun little way of in this case, doing outreach to alumni or to faculty or students who are interested in engaging with study abroad. Maybe somebody who's thinking about signing up for a trip or interested in just following along with the Hiram study abroad experience. So Brittany went to one of my first Sway workshops years and years ago. And so she created that series after that. So there's some other examples. So that was a staff created project. Here are some from faculty and students. So faculty, and this is bringing me into the design mode. I'm going to go right into the finished version. So this is Christopher Ryan, and he's created a website which is acting as a site for his landscape painting course. So this one is equally, feels a little bit similar in that it's sort of a slide-like feel to it. So I can scroll through this and see the photos he's uploaded and the commentary he's offered for how to do his process and method here. And he gives different examples. Week 1, he's going chronologically, value drawings, and he's showing examples for students. And so students could come back to this again and again. They could see, different segments. Chris has even uploaded YouTube videos here for instruction. So he's going over how to do landscape painting. He's out in plein air here doing some illustrations, and students could then go through this on their own terms. Week 3, developing color. You kind of get the picture here with Chris's landscape painting course. So he invited students, and actually part of that course, this was last 3 week when we were in lockdown. He had to quickly move to online. So all the students in that course had to create their own Sway in response to that. So here is a student who agreed to share their site, and I can come in here and play that one. So here's Jamie's response, landscape, calling it a portfolio. And so this one looks a little different. It's more like a horizontally scanning site. And they go into their final project, which is painting this plastic shed. And you can see some different iterations of their experimentations with painting that shed, and then offering process, method, and then reflection. And Christopher has also offered some feedback here. This is very, very specific feedback right in a public forum. So what's cool about this is, and there you see I'm kind of jumping in as well. So what's cool about this is, from a student perspective, they can see their growth over time. And then their project lives on a space that is transportable, and that's kind of living. So they could link it to other people, they could come back to it, they could edit it, and they could show it off. But really, for the purposes of learning, this was really what we call a learning portfolio, where it's supposed to be something kind of messy and organic, a place to kind of combine ideas and projects and show things off through the course of the course. There were some Sways that look a little more like signature projects. So in Dr. Rhodes' courses, he asked students to do their final sociology papers and present them as Sways. So this was quite interesting, or websites. I don't think we like to use the phrase Sway as much because nobody knows what the heck that is. But he said, hey, turn your paper into a website, and we use Sway to do so. So instead of just writing a final research essay or paper, they had to integrate it into a site. And so you can see this student chose Income and Wealth Inequality in America. This is Brett Johnson. And he begins with this comic, this political commentary, and he offers these graphs from different places. And one of the outcomes for this project was to really emphasize sources, right? Citing work like we do in the academy. And so you can see how this feels a little different than a document, but this sort of, but it has the same kind of rigor we might expect in a Word document. But it feels like something you might read on the New York Times, something that might show up on your social media post. And so it's that kind of web that rich web language that we all live in today that students kind of get. They're like, oh, I know what I'm trying to produce here. I know what looks good, what feels good. And it kind of bridges that gap between old and new media that I think is really very relevant to our students. So even at the bottom, he really emphasized, again, doing things in a scholarly fashion. So we have this works cited page. And so each student had to produce these. Not all of them came out quite that great. Here's one I really liked, medicated. Oh, they took it down. That's too bad. Medicated, not educated, which, just has that rhyme to it. So there were a number of them that were cool. White feminism isn't just white, and it's not feminism either. So here's a cool site. This looks like something from the Atlantic, almost. And so you can see Sway is automatically presenting it in this really cool way. It animates the headlines. It illustrates the media as it comes in. And I feel just by scrolling through it, I've soaked up like a sea creature all the information I need. I figured it out. So the creators of this aren't illustrating this. Look at how the photo's zooming in. We don't need to do any of that. None of this is like a PowerPoint where we need to say, hey, here, give me this illustration, or we need to kind of manually build it. Sway is automatically doing a lot of these illustrations and animations for us. This was really quite quick to gin up. And that was the intention of Sway, was to make it really easy to produce things. Let me show you one I've been working on. And then I'm gonna show you some of the design, how to get into the designer. So this one, Hiram College Northwoods Field Station. I've been tinkering around with this. You can see the editor. It looks like these cards. I'm gonna come back to this in a second. And I can click on play, and it gives me this wonderful header. You can see the Northwoods Field Station Lodge, and we can scroll down and see some media I've uploaded. I talk about reflections on my visits there in the summer of 2018 and 2019, and kind of falling in love with the place. I embed a YouTube video here, which was flying a drone over Cherry Lake. And so, it's, again, Sway is a great way. It really organically embeds media like Twitter posts or YouTube or audio clips in a way that's honestly a little harder in Microsoft Word. And again, this could be shared as a public link or as a private link. So we have complete control over who can access this. And we can do really fun, kind of bloggy looking stuff here too, with some photos. I have what's called a media stack here of photos from this trip from 1997 of some Hiram alum going to Northwoods and doing some cross-country skiing. Here's Cherry Lake, same lake we were just flying over. And so we have a quote here. When I signed up for Northwoods trip, I never imagined I'd be crashing a $600 drone into a pine tree. And then, we have this great photo of the Hiawatha campus. That's as far as I've gotten. The rest of it is sort of a template. But so let me show you, some of the different ways in which you can make it look. So you can come into templates and choose different styles to start from. So the one I often start from is the blog. So if I click on the blog template, it gives me a preview of what this thing looks like. And you can just drag and drop and replace the photos here, these wonderful these vine ripe tomatoes. And you can, click on, if I want to do this, I can just click on these elements and begin editing. And so this is really like a food blog, and it kind of shows you how it starts off looking, and then how you can edit it from there. Do you like the feel? Then start with that one. Or maybe you don't, and you want to do more of a, the DIY project is another common template people like to use. This one feels a little more like a coffee table book, really big, detailed photos on one side, and then a little bit of text commentary on the other. And it scrolls from left to right. And so it's really showing different steps and commentary with that project. So a great way of really telling a story or publishing content. And of course, once you select the templates, you can edit them a little further. Brittany used the newsletter template for hers. And there's a ton of them, right? There's ones that are a little more developed. You can also start from a blank slate, or you can start from a document. So if I click start from a document, I can also upload a Word document or a PowerPoint, and it will turn that file into a sway. Let me show you that really quick. So when I go to PowerPoint, say I want to turn a PowerPoint file into a sway, and this is really cool. So here's a PowerPoint file from one of my classes last week. I'm going to download this baby. It's downloading to my computer. And say I want to go back. Let me close down some of these animals. Let me just go back to sway. So this is a different looking space. This is the sway kind of dashboard. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a different way, but it has all the same links. I'm going to click start from document and say I want to quickly, once again, turn that PowerPoint into a sway. Let me locate the PowerPoint I just downloaded. I'm going to upload that. It's doing a little bit of magic work. And let's see what it spits out for us. This is a great way of getting started. So it's taken all the media, all the data from my PowerPoint, and it knows what's a heading. It knows what's a body. You know, it knows what the different elements look like. So it's really chunked it out into different segments for me. And then I can go over from this editor into the design, which is really the view of what the website looks like. And so this is what it's produced for me. It's produced this website based on my PowerPoint. And so you see it's got these, it really looks a little bit different from how my PowerPoint looks. I didn't open it up for you. But you can see it's really included these things as well. So now it's turned this into a URL I can easily you know, share with other people, or maybe I want to turn the PowerPoint into a presentation for a virtual community I'm a part of, or a virtual conference I'm attending, or I'm teaching this class at a different place or a different time. And that's a quick way of doing that work. So, you know, let's just open this. I'll show you what the PowerPoint looks like real quick. It's got this classic kind of art gallery template, which is kind of common. It looks very different, right? So, so what's cool about Sway is they've really used AI and some other tools to make it quickly producing things. That's one of the really cool features I like about it is it shows how once you start hitting this, you start getting lots of content in your Office 365 system, you can start kind of mixing and mashing things and quickly generating content. So let me show you some elements of the editor. I'm going to go back to my Northwoods Sway. So here here's the site, what it looks like to a viewer. And this is the general editor. And what I like about the editor is there's really two modes. So I can click on storyline or I can click on design. And design gives me more of a, what does the site look like to a viewer? And storyline tab gives me more of a, more control, more features, more functions here. So here's the, you know, the top, the header, and it's all organized, the header image. And I can add more elements like, you know, give a caption for the photo, front face of the Northwoods Lodge. Oh, and it's giving me a little bit of details there. It says captions are not displayed on background images, but it allows me the ability to add a logo, so I could add a Hiram logo or something else here. So that's my header card. And I can do things that work with the AI system that help kind of make the feel look a little different. So the actual stock photo is this very large photo, which has a lot of the ground space in it, which I didn't want to highlight. So I put this, what's called the focus point, way up in the air. But say I wanted to say focus on that grass. I could then take a look at what it looks like in the designer, and now you can see it's really changed the feel of the look now. So now my header text is down here in the grass, and the lodge kind of resides. I actually really like how that looks. That's kind of fun. So what I like about this is it really allows you to kind of play with the look, but you don't have to get into, you don't need any like web design experience. I don't have to be playing around with resizing the image or doing any kind of pixel modifications or messing around with like, is it a PNG or a JPEG, etc. I'm just banging right out of the gate with uploading content. I have it now. My next card is a text card, and I can, add different data there. And if I want to add another element here, I just click on this green plus button, and it gives me options for creating any kind of new element on my site that I'd like. So I click on text, and I could say, all right, let's do some body work. Or I click on media. I can upload, an embed code from like a widget, from like a YouTube video or a SoundCloud or whatever we can find. I can upload an audio clip, which we've seen some students do when they're doing podcasts or interviews. I can also just upload a file directly. That should open up my upload box for my PC. So that's very familiar. What might be unfamiliar is, say, doing a group like this, where I'm adding elements of group elements here. Let me go, actually, to illustrate this, let me go down to this aspect. So here's my YouTube video where I've just dragged and dropped the clip. And if I click add image, it opens up this really dynamic side panel where it allows me to pull in images from all these different sources. So I could click on, I usually start with my device. This is what we're most familiar with, where I'm uploading something from the hard drive, but I could also click on my OneDrive. So now it's opening up, because it's well integrated with the Office 365 account. It's opening up all my different OneDrive folders. It was working really sprightly earlier. And I can see I've got, hey, Northwoods book photos, which were very generously shared by Jen Clark and others at the field station. And here are some wonderful historical photos of the field station. Maybe I want to tell the story of the founding of the Northwoods field station, and I can begin uploading these. So here was one of an aerial shot back when they used an airplane. They didn't have a drone to survey the land, and I want to maybe select that one, and it's going to drop it in here. And I could, ideally I'd have a date for that. I'd have to do some more research on that. But then I want to see, what does that look like? Oh, check it out. So it's dropped it in here, and I can see the captions are here. And again, I can click on these elements right in the designer and begin doing some editing. So say I want to add some focus points, and I can kind of see in real time how it adjusts the view over here on the left. It also is giving me a preview of what this looks like on other devices. So here it's showing me a desktop or maybe a tablet, and then it's showing me the mobile view on a cell phone. Sway claims to really optimize for different devices dynamically. So Microsoft is really trying to pull all the stops out here in terms of dynamic web publishing. So I'm still here in design mode, and I want to go back to storyline. This all looks really good right now. And every time I offer this introduction, I try not to go too deep here, because there's a million things we can get into in terms of elements you could build. But basically, I just want to show you guys how cards work by clicking the plus button and adding new elements. Sometimes students, once they start on this, they begin to get frustrated because they sometimes are not able to make it look exactly how they want it to look. And that's one of the trade-offs here is, unlike a standard web tool, you don't have exact control all the time over how it looks. And that's a sacrifice you make for quickly producing something that's viewable on many devices. So there's little tricks you can learn to make it look the way you want, which I'm happy to. I always say, hey, contact me directly if you hit a roadblock, and I can help work you through it or view the Microsoft tools. I've never hit an insurmountable roadblock here for something students wanted to present. So that's basically the editor. It works on cards. It can pull from traditional media sources like your hard drive or from the web. Again, here in the side panel, I can also click other places, not just OneDrive, but I can go into Flickr. I can go right to YouTube. And what's cool is, I could type in Hiram College if I wanted some stock images. And, here we've got all the YouTube content for Hiram College, and we could drop that right in. Of course, what's great in terms of, we have a librarian in the room today. So, we have to think about, and always we have to think about referencing and copyright and so forth. But what's great about pulling from YouTube is it's all public anyway. So we can certainly link this stuff publicly. But, we always talk about needing to cite your sources and so forth, and you have permission for copyright. So obviously that's a concern when on the web. And we go into that with student workshops. So those are the sort of general basics of the designer, of the builder. Ooh, now I don't like what this looks like. You see how it's sort of taken out the, let me edit that back up top there. There we go. Okay. So yeah, all right, that's a little nicer. That took us a little too far down. So the focus point I just moved up. I'm not sure if you're following that. Let me hit another element of this designer, and that's up here in the upper right. This is the styles button. So styles, now I can edit, I can adjust. Is it a vertical scrolling website? Is it that horizontal kind of like a coffee table style book we saw in the DIY template? Or is it more like a slideshow like we saw with Brittany's newsletter, or more like a PowerPoint? And then people, your visitors can click through like this and experience it. You can see it looks very, very different in this way. It's kind of fun, actually. That doesn't quite look great. I have to edit that if I want to do that. I'm going to go back to vertical because that's how I've been building it. So beyond the style, I can come in here and change the font, the colors. I can give it this funky, like, hey, come to my kid's birthday vibe, or we're having a baby shower thing. It's got all these different elements, you know, for quickly producing things. And you could just go wild with it and hit the remix button. Careful, it's a chaos machine. But remix will give you a random computation of all these different elements to kind of give you a new vibe. So let me hit one more element, and then I'm going to zoom out for questions and comments. And that's our sharing. How do we publish this baby? So share is the big button up here in the upper right. And this automatically creates a URL. So I've got it set to anyone with the link. So this is a hot URL. I can drag and drop this. I could put this on my Facebook or my blog. I could put it in email, and anybody from Vladimir Putin to your grandma should be able to edit this without a Hiram sign-in. I click copy, and now I can invite anybody to come view my Northwoods, my half-baked Northwoods sway or website with that link. So that's great. I can also get what's called a visual link. And this is what some folks like to use when they're pasting it, for instance, into an email body. It gives it this sort of visual appeal. And I can copy that and drop that into the body of an email. Let me see if this works. So we maybe crank the photo's not displaying there. That might come in a minute, but it gives it this sort of HTML box. It kind of chunks it out as more of something grabbable or visually appealing than just a hyperlink. So that's kind of fun. And again, it's really designed to maximize engagement in a web world. All right, so let me go back to share. And of course, it allows you to get an embed code, go to social media directly, and there's some more nuance here. I can add a password to it. I can also create a link for collaborators to edit. So say I want you guys to add a story. Maybe you join me on this trip to Northwoods and I'm trying to collect stories. Or maybe I want to have, you know, Jen Clark or some others drop in their 2 cents. When I click edit, I can copy that link. And then anybody who has that link can come in, and they're going to need a Hiram ID, but they can come in and they can edit this as well. It's a collaborative edit space. So really, really powerful stuff with small groups, with students, or with departments and teams here. Now, up here at the very top, I can select other nuance in terms of my sharing privileges. So I can just make it so only specific people can access this link, or you need a Hiram sign-in to access this link. So a lot of control here with those. I'm going to leave it on anyone with the link for now. Those are the basics of Sway. It's a website builder, kind of. It's you know, it helps you quickly create things. It's well integrated with all the other Office tools. Yeah, let me stop my share. And comments or questions. There's a ton there. I just got to try to give an general overview.
I know that was really helpful to see sort of the basics of it. What about accessibility? Are there any concerns about accessibility with this if we're thinking about sharing it out in the wide world?
Good question. I've heard I know that the text isn't flat text that, a screen reader will pick it up. And I know that you can do alt text on there where the photos, you can even, it's really designed like a lot of Moodle and PowerPoint now. Microsoft's really tried to make it so that you can add alt text easily to that. But anytime you bring in media, you have to make sure that that is sort of backwards built in. So YouTube, we like YouTube because it automatically captions, but it's kind of maybe you need to spot check the YouTube captions. I understand that. I don't know that I could demo live, but I've heard that I've seen Microsoft do this where they use an audio clip and you can actually get it to produce captions from it. That might need an additional plugin. But that's a great point. I think Microsoft's been really trying to cover some ground with accessibility. I don't know if that helps.
Great. It does.
I'll tell you my frustration with Sway. It's not exactly a website. So what bothers me about it is part of me wants to use Sway to build e-portfolios. However, what's different, what I've noticed, the key difference between a Sway, which is, again, is like not a thing, but whatever, the websites that Sway produces, it's hard to create subpages. So the templates do not involve subpages. So this is really it's really designed for a single page website. It's really designed for like a one-off blog or a single page story or narrative, which is really nice in terms of, hey, just create a paper or tell a story or create a digital poster or newsletter. But if you want something that's kind of a little bigger, like in my my course for pre-licensed teachers, we use Google Sites. And so let me show you, I reference this site from time to time. I like Google Sites as another great website building tool. And what I like about Google Sites is you can branch. It looks a little more traditional in that you can create branching sub pages. So I run this one credit workshop course completely off of this website. And so this is the editor for Google Sites. And here is the public site. And you can see at the top, I've got these sub pages. So here's a syllabus and rubric. Here's weekly workshops. Here's the podcast we produced. I really like this. It feels familiar. I like that I can create sub pages. With Sway, it's really not built for that. You can, of course, create links. I could create a little, table, and I could say, hey, here's Sway 1, here's Sway 2, here's Sway 3, and I could title them like, syllabus, and so on and so forth. That's a little clunky. I don't like that. So there are some limitations there, and it wouldn't translate perfectly into like, it couldn't easily replace our Connections ePortfolio, for instance, because it doesn't offer that. Why? I don't know. I almost want to write Microsoft a letter and be like, hey, help us with ePortfolios. If we had an iota of the brain power they put into this thing and they applied it to what we're trying to do with ePortfolios, it would maybe be a little bit of a different experience from what we're getting with education. So it's not quite everything. I think it's great for, students really like it. I have so few, vis-a-vis education and ePortfolio, students get Sway pretty quick. And they're usually off to the races very quick. And they get it. They like it's a visually compelling website. So they really like building the Sways. Very little support calls for Sway. Not the case with some other tools, which is fine. Bigger, more complex tools, you need a little more support and so forth. So yeah, those are some limitations I've observed with it.
I look forward to trying it out. Gotta find a time to play around with it. So
yeah, I think it's great, and it's really empowering. Students are always like, wow, this is cool, and then we can crank something out. Great for signature projects or a running blog, a reflection, and so forth.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett.
Absolutely. Hey,
thanks.
yeah, and let me know if you wind something up or have any questions or have any thoughts about a project.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, this is a small group. Glad you guys could show up today. Yeah. Once again, let me know, and yeah, hope you have a great day. If there's nothing else.
Garrett, can I have one other question? I know you showed us the desktop version and that seems like the easiest, but I'm assuming it has an app.
You know, that's a good question. I haven't checked in on the app in a while. There used to be an app on the iPad. I always run the workshop in the browser mode, even on the iPad, just because I want to
okay.
offer a consistent experience.
There we go.
Right.
But the only issue, I don't have an app on my iPad currently. Let me check the App Store. That's a great question. You know, the
I
only
thought there was
issue,
one, but I don't think there is.
yeah, let's search. I'm on the App Store. I think they just tore it down.
Yeah, I think they might have removed it if they had one, because I could have sworn they had one.
I think they just dumped all their development into the browser version. The only thing I've seen about the building a SWAN, the iPad, one of the limitations I found was getting like a YouTube, like using embed codes. So yeah, so if a student wanted to, it's harder to get, because the iPad's always throwing you into the YouTube app, or it's throwing you. So it's hard to get some of the more advanced features without a little bit of like chicanery, like forcing the desktop browser and the other thing. So I sometimes go into that if they're going to be using YouTube. That was the one real issue I found with building a SWAN, the iPad. Other than that, it's a little bit, it's just a little harder to do things with your finger, with web building. It's a little slower. But it does integrate really nicely with the OneDrive app. You know, it's still, even from the browser version, it'll pull up your OneDrive usually very quickly. So if you've got things in OneDrive, it works great, but so often students don't. So, you know, they're, or other folks don't. So it's, you know, they're out to the web, or they need to upload something from their photos or videos. So, and it handles that very well. You know, if you click that side panel when you're integrating media, will open up your video and your photos on the iPad, pulls them in really nicely. But yeah, I usually, when I'm in designer mode, I'm usually on a desktop. It's just a little, I find it twice as fast.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, you know, as if I was using it, that's what I would do, but I was just curious for students' sake.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like with Dr. Rhodes' class, when they were writing papers, we had them start in Word. And so they could do feedback, they could do comments, they could do all that great stuff. And then they could go and import that Word document and then generate the sway. And then they could start, you know, hey, let's get the visual elements there. Let's make it look like a pretty website. And then, you know, share it with some people and get some feedback. Cool. And I mean, that's how publishing works. So this was kind of cool. It's like, hey, this is when you're producing content that you're taking on the road, or you're trying to promote something, it starts in the workshop, it starts with revising and researching, and then it kind of makes its way into other places like a website or a book or a YouTube channel or all of the above. So it's a cool, it's kind of a new way of showing the writer's process, or maybe not the writer's process, but the creator's process in a new way.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, guys. I hope you know, maybe Sway will pop up in some of your work, and I'd love to hear it. We keep wanting to, you know, build out our repertoire of homegrown examples. I think those are the most powerful things to show off.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, have a great day. I
Thanks.
think we've lost the weather gauge, but it still feels, I'm still kind of sweating in here. So I don't know if it's like coming into the library a little bit. See you.
Yeah.
Bye.